Welcome to today's video. I'm a little late on this one, but that's okay, you know? This movie had me conflicted. When I say conflicted, I mean after the movie I had to sit down and write out my thoughts, which I rarely do, and I had to make a pros and cons list because I literally could not figure out if I liked the movie. There were elements of it that I thoroughly enjoyed, and then there was things in this movie that really hung me up. In today's video, I'm gonna go ahead and go through that list of things, my pros and cons list. I ended up changing it a little bit to the good, the bad, and the meh. Oh my gosh, because here, I need to get engagement, you guys. What is your favorite Alien movie? You're not gonna like my answer. Do I go with the classic and say Alien 2 or the first Aliens? Or do I say my actual answer, which is low-key Prometheus? I know! I even really like Alien vs. Predator. I just like to spice things up. I really like this franchise. I actually did a reaction video a long time ago. I did a reaction to, oh, well, not a reaction because I already watched it, but I did a commentary to the very first Alien movie, which is of course classic. And this one, it references all the movies really, but it does kind of lean heavily into the alien look of it all. This movie is set between the first Alien movie and the second Alien movie. Now, a girl gets confused on her timelines, okay? I ain't even gonna lie. You have the original Alien franchise, Alien, Aliens, and Alien, what's the third one called? I don't know. I don't care because I don't really like the third one. You have those three that are kind of in order, and then you have Alien Resurrection, which jumps into the future, and then you have Prometheus, which technically takes place before the original Alien franchise, but in my mind, because everything looks so new, I always think it takes place after the Alien franchise, but no, it's a prequel, so it takes place before. Same with Alien Covenant. And I don't know if you consider AVP. I enjoy those movies, so honestly I think they should fall into the timeline. I think there's room there. Timeline has always been very confusing for me, and I really hope I'm not the only one. I just get I'm a little I get things twisted very easily in my mind. Part of the marketing was basically we're going back to basics, right? We're getting away from the Prometheus and Alien Covenant of it all, which again, I thoroughly enjoyed one of those movies, but I really did like the idea of okay, let's go back and focus on sort of the blue-collar workers of it all. This follows a group of teenagers, actually, who are stuck on a mining colony on the Jackson Star. They find this Weyland-Yutani research vessel kind of drifting in space that is pretty much ready to impact the ring that goes around their planet. And so they're okay, this is our perfect opportunity because there's some cryostasis chambers up there that we can grab and use to fuck off to a different planet. Of course, they go up there, chaos ensues, you meet some aliens, face huggers, terrifying fuckers. It's definitely, this movie I feel is more in that horror genre. Alien originally was a horror movie, and then you kind of migrated more towards action. This movie, it starts horror and then it really blends the action in well. I'm just gonna go ahead and just start with what I thought was really good about this movie. First thing, set designs. It looked great. Like I said, this movie was taking place between Alien and Aliens 2, so you get back to more of that industrial aesthetic. You have the mining colony on the planet, which everything just looks grimy and dirty. Even when you get to the research station, you have more of that older design from the first two Alien movies. I enjoyed it. I do understand why Prometheus, even though it takes place before the Aliens, why that looks so clean and new and high-tech, because it was owned by Mr. Weyland himself, and it was a bunch of scientists who were going on an expedition that cost probably an amount of money that I can't even imagine. That's why it looked that way. And then, when you think about the Alien movies, they're just blue-collar workers. Same here, same situation. The mining colony, when you finally get up to the Renaissance, those are just kind of lower level. The company's not going to spend as much money into the tech or the design or anything like that. So I thought I really enjoyed the set designs. They look so real. If you're using the volume, I think sometimes you can see like, okay, well, they're not actually there, and it kind of messes with your mind a little bit. But here it was like everything just looks so good. I didn't know this because I don't play the video games. Apparently they kind of had Alien Isolation as like a reference for some of the set designs. Oh, I've always wanted to say this. Kind of piggybacking off of that is my other good, which is the practical effects. When it comes to the face huggers and the xenomorphs, though, oh, the xenomorph design, when it first came on screen, I was like, oh, thank God they went back to that design. I hated the design of the alien from Alien Covenant. Part of the reason, because I could tell that bitch was CG. I'm not anti-CG, but I think when it's too much and your brain can like sense that something's wrong there, I get a fight or flight response and I don't like it. But I really did enjoy the original design of the alien, and they really, oh my gosh, they look so good. They look so good. They look so sleek. I was watching some clips of how they did the practical effects behind the xenomorphs. Both the face huggers and the xenomorphs were done with like a mixture of animatronics and puppetry, and like the xenomorphs especially, they actually had stunt actors like put on the suit, and then they sprinkled in a little bit of CG. You can't even really tell. That's how it should be done. The director, Fede Alvarez, actually had a great comment of how CGI should be invisible in movies. It's a little bit ironic considering what comes later in the movie, but it should complement what's already there practically. It shouldn't replace it completely. Me as the audience, I was genuinely having a blast with the aliens because of how like real they looked. There was this one scene where the alien like kind of came out. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys ever been to Universal Studios and you've been on the Jurassic Park River Rapid Adventure or something like that. You're towards the end of the ride where you're gonna do the plunge, and the T-Rex kind of like comes out and is like, "Huh," like that. It reminded me exactly of that moment. Me and Kaylee Spaney, we're on the same wavelength here. She had a comment about what it was like to film on set with practical effects. Quote, "I do think it makes it scarier though. I feel like my brain just knows when it's CG, same girl, same, and when it's practical, like the first Jurassic Park." I hope that the audience also feels that. We do. Obviously, it was such a treat for us actors, even being actors, and like for the audience, it's so much more, it feels at least, so much more interactive. So I really did enjoy the practical effects. Next good for me, action and horror. I kind of touched on this a little bit with the genres. More specifically, like some of the action sequences, they had like new and exciting ways to, I don't want to say battle, but like kind of battle these xenomorphs. The whole gravity scene was unique. It was different. And it was so cool. And then the face huggers, like those fuckers are terrifying. I always knew they were terrifying, okay? But when you have like a bunch of them, oh, that's a whole nother story. And I have like a thing about skittering things. Ooh, I'm terrified of things that just crawl really fast at you. And like the fact that they can just lunge onto you. I didn't like that at all, but it was fun. Was it fun? Yeah, I guess that's a word to use. It did what it was supposed to. You know, it was very tense, for me, very emotional. And the horror elements too, it was a very gory movie. It definitely was a little bit more gruesome than some of the previous Alien movies. I think it's like kind of on the same level as like Alien Resurrection and Alien Covenant. Yeah, it played on those elements very well. Another good is the main characters, Rain and Andy. I thought they had an amazing dynamic. Individually as characters, because they're the main characters, I mean they should, but like they definitely brought interesting takes on certain topics such as like human struggles, the choices that people make, and the consequences for those choices. Rain really has to struggle with a decision if she should leave her adopted brother behind in order to have a better life. If she stays on this planet, she will be worked to death. And I'm like, girl, run. When it boils down to it, it is a selfish choice that she ultimately decides to make. And then on the other side of it, you have Andy, who is an android, so that kind of like takes this human element away from him, but he ironically sometimes ends up being the most human out of the entire group. Definitely brings like this interesting dynamic because Andy is programmed to serve Rain. When he gets this upgrade, it kind of complicates things and it turns him into this cold and calculated synthetic. This movie does bring up some very interesting questions and complicated scenarios, and you definitely see that with the main characters of Rain and Andy. A lot of times throughout this movie where I was like, oh, this is such a shitty situation. Like, I'm trying to put myself in their situation and I'm like, what would I do? Both actors did phenomenal. Again, piggybacking off of that, ugh, I just love that word. My next good, which is the themes. There are so many freaking themes in this movie, and let me tell you, I went down a rabbit hole again. So I'm just gonna like touch into some of them. Biggest one, anti-corporation. This is what this whole franchise is built off of, which is we hate Weyland-Yutani. We're big on anti-corporation, which is so ironic considering that the Alien franchise is now owned by Disney. This movie is like, and the whole Alien franchise really is like, okay, well, this is what our future looks like if we just continue to let Disney get away with what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Like, allegedly, like, Disney is trying to legally prove that they can kill you and get away with it, but, you know, that's allegedly. And they did back down, so, you know. But still, it happened. They're pushing it. Not Disney, but Weyland-Yutani does not care about anybody but themselves, the company. They are willing to continually sacrifice people's lives. They are willing to work you to death to get what they want. They have numbers to reach. They need to make money. They got goals. They exploit the working conditions of blue-collar workers, and they don't care about their health or well-being. More often than not, those workers are overworked and underpaid. I cannot get over that this movie is produced by fucking Disney. Our main group of characters are teenagers from a mining colony. I think this is like the first movie in the franchise that really focuses on what Weyland-Yutani does to the little person. It really shows you how greedy these corporations can be, and I will never stop saying that. Disney. So another theme of this, which is really, if you heard of it in psychology, is the trolley problem. So the trolley problem is this ethical dilemma in which one must weigh the sacrifice of one person against a group of people. So do you save the one or do you save the many? We see this with Andy specifically and sort of the whole android thing. I think the one guy, Bjorn, he brings it up that his mother was killed because an android decided to choose the benefit of the group. And we see this again reflected with Andy when he has to make that choice with Tyler and his sister Kay, who is being basically hunted by an alien. He wants to keep the door closed. Tyler's begging him, please open the door so Kay can come through. And Andy's like, I gotta save the rest of us, you guys, sorry. And here's the thing, I don't know what this says about me, but as a human, I'm choosing the same thing as Andy. My life is on the line here too, and I am a coward. I'm gonna be honest, you guys. I will sacrifice some people, especially from a fucking alien. So I don't even blame the android, but I thought it was a very interesting dilemma, especially with Rain, who kind of challenges him on this, and then he kind of fires back like, well, you were willing to sacrifice me. This movie definitely shows you the nuances of humanity, which I think we need to see more of in media instead of seeing one side versus the other, because that's not how humanity works. So the next sort of theme in this is definitely like with the self-preservation. Is it okay to make sacrifices in the name of self-preservation? Here's where we're getting scholarly, okay? It's reflected in the story and the symbolism of Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus, at the heart of the story, it's these pair of siblings who are left to die, and they end up surviving. What lengths are you willing to go to in order to survive? And what sacrifice will have to be made in order to do so? So you see those themes reflected throughout the story with multiple characters, and even with like Romulus, because he's the one who ends up surviving. Spoiler alert. Romulus is the one who ends up founding Rome. Romulus represents Weyland-Yutani's quest to propel humanity forward, the rise of an empire, but we all know the story of Rome, right? Which is that greed eventually will lead to the collapse of an empire. We also see like Romulus and Remus, the whole sibling situation reflected throughout the movie with all of the characters. Andy and Rain, adopted siblings, and then you have Tyler and Kay, who are biological siblings, and then you have Navarro and Bjorn. If I remember reading correctly, they were adopted or something like that. They're siblings. Also, I want to point out that Bjorn apparently is the father of Kay's baby, but he's also their cousin. And I was kind of confused. I'm like, that's such a casual thing to gloss over, but I think that does play within the next theme, which is motherhood. The Alien franchise has always had like this weird like idea of birth and children and motherhood. The chest burster alone, that's sort of like giving birth, you know, there's some weird shit going on there, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. Individually, you can take away different things from this. This movie is focused on sort of the unnatural and twisted elements of motherhood, which again, from the story of Romulus and Remus, but especially with Kay, because we'll get into it. And there's many takes on it. It could be representative of a ancestral relationship. You got stuff with breastfeeding, self-preservation during complicated pregnancies, childbirth. Like, you could really like dig into it. A lot of people have taken away a lot of different things from a particular scene, which I'll get into here. Going off of motherhood, piggybacking off of motherhood, I need to stop saying that now. I gotta find another way to transition. We lead to this section that I call the meh, because I'm not sure if I like it, but I'm also like not sure if I hate it. You know what I mean? We get to the third act, and Kay finally gives birth after injecting herself with the black goo, which is a reference from Alien Prometheus. And she gives birth to this alien hybrid, which is also kind of a reference to Alien Resurrection. And it's called The Offspring. The third act, it's different. So I'll give them props for that. You're very unprepared for whatever the fuck is about to happen. I guess I respect the work that went behind the design of The Offspring and the fact that there's a fucking actor in that, and that's sick and it looks insane. With that being said, the design itself, I'm still like, it's gross to look at, but I don't know if it's in a way where it takes me out of the movie, because a part of me was like, oh, we're getting so weird now that I'm kind of getting transported out of the movie. We got to this scene and I'm like, I'm still stressed, but what the fuck am I looking at? You know, so it kind of took me out of it a little bit. Is it gross? Is it silly? Is it a little too far left field? Like, I don't know. I'm still stuck on it. Another thing that's kind of like, is the secondary characters. They pose some interesting questions, you know, like Bjorn, he brings up his whole mother situation, and that's about it. Otherwise, he's a jackass and he gets killed very easily, and you kind of are like, oh, good. And like Navarro, you don't get much from her. She's just the first kill. Yeah, they don't really do much. I don't know. They do exactly what Alien franchise movies do to the rest of the secondary characters, which is they're just there as like cannon fodder. Like, they're just there to die in cool ways. I don't really have any strong opinions about them. I don't have any horrible opinions about them or anything. They're just kind of, they're meh, you know? And now we're gonna get into the bad, okay? This movie really borrows from the movies before it. And I think there is a fine line between referencing what came before you and respecting what came before you versus just straight up nostalgia bait, basically. And I think this movie does a pretty good job of balancing on that line with like the Offspring. It was more so of a reference to some of the movies before it, right? They're doing what they did kind of like in Alien Resurrection, but also combining some elements from Prometheus. You can't just completely ignore all those things and do your own new thing. You do need to reference what came before it, but at the same time, just straight up copying lines.
Get away from her, you bitch!
That took me out of it. That one was another one that was like, oh, please don't say what I think you're gonna say. And then he says it and it's like, oh. It is an iconic line, but for me, I really don't care. It was just the way that it was said, I guess, and in the moment, it didn't really fit for me. And then of course you have bringing back dead characters, which is the biggest bad of this movie that I probably think is the biggest hang up. Rook, the Rook problem. But here's the issue with Rook. He looks horrible. I know a lot of people say that it's very disrespectful to resurrect a dead actor. And I 100% agree. I know they did it respectfully because Fede Alvarez talked to Ian Holm's estate. So this is from the LA Times, quote, Alvarez reached out to Holm's widow, Sophie D. Stemple, to explain the idea to ask for thoughts. Then he discussed it with Scott, who remained acquainted with Holm throughout his life. Both parties were enthusiastic about the proposition for Romulus. So I understand that he did get permission, and the family, I believe, were even excited to see him again on the big screen. Knowing that aspect of it, I'm like, I feel bad for hating it. They actually created an animatronic and did some like puppetry, like they did what they did with the xenomorphs. A full animatronic was actually built in Ian Holm's image. On top of that, that's when they added sort of the deep fake elements. They brought in a voice actor, which is when they used the AI to try to dub the voice. I know a lot of work went into it, and both of those elements, like the permission from the family and the fact that a lot of hard work went into this, I feel so bad that I don't like it, but it's bad. You have this natural response to hate what you are seeing because you know something's wrong. You could have probably had Rook in this movie. Either A, you just made it as a quick cameo appearance. You want to do a quick callback because we do know that they like to use the same faces for different models, right? As we've seen with like David and Walter. And just had a quick cameo appearance to make like a quick callback, whatever. It would have felt cheap, but you know, whatever. Or B, you could have messed up his face because he was already messed up. Like his body was like, I think torn in half or something. You could have very easily like burned his face or something. Had something to cover up that deep fakiness of it all because it was just like smooth. It was just like his whole face and like smooth and like, hey, here I am. They lingered on this very unnatural deep fake of a dead actor. And as an audience, you recognize that whether consciously or subconsciously. And it leads you into this sort of uncanny valley effect. It's this term that describes a sensation that you feel when you're looking at something with human characteristics. This was published 50 years ago in a Japanese journal. His name was, and I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, Masario Mori, and he believed that this response is based off of a survival instinct within humans, which I 100% believe because, like I said, for me, and this was before I even really looked into like what Uncanny Valley meant, it was this subconscious response, this fight or flight response that I had. This thing's not right. This thing is posing as human. It's pretending to be human, but it wants to hurt me. And that's sort of like the feeling I think most people get whenever they see that. Like it's just, there's something not quite right. The thing is, he's in there for so long. And the camera lingers on him for so long, and it's like, and he's a big part of the movie, and I think that's what just holds me up on this. So I do have a lot of goods, and I have a lot of mess, and I have like one major bad. That bad, I think, really, really drags down the movie for me, and it's why I'm so conflicted with this movie. I really hope that Disney has a key takeaway from this. Because it did do pretty well in the box office. And I know they're oh, I'm so excited. They're making a Alien TV show. I'm really excited about that. But I really hope the key takeaway from this is that we need to lean more into practical effects. Like if you're gonna be, I know, listen, Disney, I know your budgets for movies and shit. Okay, y'all need to monitor where that budget's going and put a little bit more into practical effects. So I really hope they don't think that, oh yeah, what we did with Ian Holm, that was totally okay. Let's keep doing that. Like, I hope they don't, I know I say this, but I just know how these companies work. They're gonna have the wrong takeaway from it. They're not gonna listen to what people say. So yes, that is it for my video today. If you guys can try to convince me to either love or hate this movie even more, leave a comment down below. What did you guys like about it? I surprisingly really got into the themes of this movie, also the practical effects, the fact that it was like a theme park ride. I know it's a very controversial movie. Some people really love it, some people really hate it. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I keep forgetting to promote my Instagram. I finally posted my first picture. I got to meet a famous actor, so go ahead and jump over there. So I will see you guys on the next one. I don't know what I'm gonna be doing. It's gonna be horror themed though. Spooky season. Goodbye, and have a nice life. And stay away from those aliens. Oh, stay away from the face huggers. Those fuckers are fast.